If you was watching social media this week, you would have never known that the UFL had some of their best games of the season this last weekend. Let's get started and we'll come back and talk about it.
And that's the bottom line. You want a war? You're gonna get one.
The cream rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Mike, Marty, good to see you're watching the show. Well, guys, week 5 is in the books, and we had some by far our best football of the season. Too bad everybody else. You'd think there was enough football fans out there that cared about football, but instead they kind of wanted to spend the week on social media talking about everything but football. But we are going to keep it to football, at least for the first part of the show. But when we get to our hot topics, after we do our week 5 in review and we get on, move on past the studs and duds, we are going to hit that subject head on and hope we got some viewers that are ready to hit the comment line and let us know what you think about it. But
more importantly, as it says at the beginning, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. This weekend was nuts. And judging by our picks, it was completely off the wall, crazy nuts.
All I know is I went 1-3, and it was good enough to gain a game on all 3 of you ding dongs. So
hey, I did the reverse gonk, man. I took Michigan because I knew if I took them, St. Louis would win. It worked out. Here we are. What do you think about that game, Mike?
Just be glad that Bryce Perkins had, they had a game plan. But, hey, maybe there's going to be a time where the Panthers and the Battlehawks cross paths again.
Maybe.
We can only hope, right?
That's what we're both hoping for.
Oh, I'll be there if that's the case.
But the thing, I know we've got that game coming, but this is just for you, Mike. I don't want you to ever forget about this.
He's back! Down the sideline for Butler to high
He
Nope.
he
Nope.
was definitely back. But before we get to that game, courtesy of the UFL, let's get into it. Let's start off with our Friday night matchup: Memphis at Birmingham.
What a game.
Any playing time as the number 3 guy this year? Well, no playing. Down in 5, Stallions rush 4. Wynn airing it deep, got a man out there, and he drops it into D. Anderson. Anderson loping to the end zone. It's a showboat touchdown. Good snap, good hold. The kick bending, and it's no good. And now the return by Isaiah Henney on the short field goal. Henney up the sidelines. Henney with blockers in front. Isaiah Henney with a move. Isaiah Henney is going to take this one all the way back for the Memphis Showboats. Cookus set, throws down the middle for the end zone. Fingertip grab and a touchdown. Jordan, the quarterback to choose. First and goal. Cookus with time to the end zone. It is caught. Touchdown. The toe tap. Memphis gets a stop. They claim their first win. Cookus to the end zone for 2. It's caught. Jace Sternberger ties it at 20. Good snap, good hold. The kick is sailing wide right. It is short and out of bounds for the rest of the year. Wynn, with pressure coming, throws for the end zone. It is caught. D. Anderson snares it, and the Showboats are in the win column. 24-20.
What a wild game.
Yeah, wild game. And they say, in football you have to have short memories. This is referring back to the Battle Hawks, that game. So that clip you saw, I already forgot all about it. Passing forward. So short memories.
That first touchdown pass Birmingham had, didn't that look a lot like Terrell Owens? I could have swore that was Terrell Owens that caught that.
Oh yeah.
Case through a good football, with the scores there, and it was nice to see an overtime game for a change in the with all the scores are in the league. I think it was good for fans to see an overtime shootout.
Don't you think? And I'm glad Brett's here to join us to talk about the first game of the week, but don't you think that the overtime adds more tension, more drama to these games? I mean, absolutely. Brett, I know you were on the bad end of it, but don't you think that the overtime adds just you get the ball, and we'll see how it plays out? The overtime in the NFL feels like just part of the game where the best of 3, it seems like, man, it's on. What do you think, Brett?
Yeah, I've always preferred, the old college football overtime. I still prefer the new, and then I really like the UFL overtime. Not a big fan of the NFL overtime until both teams can equally get the ball at least once. I know NFL's made some adjustments, but I think this is the fairest way to, it's just hard to you play 60 minutes and the game kind of gets decided by a coin toss. I never liked that at all.
Right.
So head coach Turner was asked in his post-game presser what the win meant, and courtesy of the UFL, this is what he had to say.
Brett, with the bottom line, how big a win is this for the franchise coach and just the morale of the team, and considering you've been so close throughout the season?
Yeah. Well, I think the season is what I said it was before. I see panic in people's eyes and all that. Not on the team, but just like outside the team, and the tone is panic. And I'm like, every day you go to these practices, and he's there every day. I'm sure he'll vouch for this. I mean, when you're looking at these guys, I'm like, we got 20 guys that are borderline and 25 guys that are borderline NFL players. We got a good football team. And when you look at it tonight, right, we throw the ball to D, right? D's got to be 6'6", 235 pounds. He's a monster, right? Jay Adams is a monster receiver. Right? I mean, these guys are big-time receivers, and they're NFL-type receivers. And I think that's
If you didn't recognize that voice, that was the Bottom Line's very own Brett asking that.
Can't help the microphone was a little muted out. Maybe they tried to mute it before they handed it to me.
Right. They're like, oh, it's this guy here.
Yeah, don't forget he's a Stallions fan. Don't mute it.
But most of these post-game pressers, I'm finding that who's ever running the microphone for the get people asking the questions, they have the volume turned way too low. I mean, most times you can't even understand what's being asked. But when we finally got Brett away from the Stallion and the young gal that was riding the Stallion, and we got him focused back on football, Brett also had a question for Coach Holtz about the team in general. This is what he had to say, courtesy of the UFL.
Hey, Coach, Brett from the Bottom Line. You've had so much success here in Birmingham and with spring ball. Has this season with a lot of the injuries, has it been frustrating for you? It's just been something you're not very familiar with, with it. And is Birmingham slipping a little bit, or is it just the competition is catching up?
No,
More parity.
No, I think there is a lot more parity, but I also think, we've had 10 starters on offense miss a game. We're in our third quarterback after 4 games. There's not any continuity. I feel like every week we're starting over again. There's always distractions. It's like we've had Deion Keynes missed a game, C.J. Marable's missed a game, Ricky Persons missed a game. We're on our third quarterback, Alex who started it, and then Matt Corral, and now we're on Case. We've got Marcus Ball wasn't here this weekend because he's having a baby out in California, who was our other tight end. So at the end of the game, when we lost JT, we only had one tight end, and our 2-point package has always had.
So then he went on to address right after that Brett's question about, is Birmingham slipping? And this is what he had to say about that.
Feel like you're just putting your finger in holes in the dam and you don't have enough fingers and toes to plug them all. So, my frustration is not we lost, you know what I mean? It's not, well, everybody's catching up. We got to get some consistency going, and that has probably been the biggest difference between this team and team in years past. I don't think we're slipping. I just think, continuity and keeping everybody healthy and having everybody out there and getting better week 1 to week 2 matters.
I think that's what I like most about Coach Holtz is that he's going to tell you what's truly on his mind.
Yeah, after the post-game press conference, I'm out in the hallway talking to a guy that covers it from Huntsville, and Skip came up to us, and I grinned and said, Coach, I had to ask the question, and he gave me a fist pump and smile and said, look, I get it, I understand, I know. And, he really mentioned that, we've had so many, our starting center's been with the team for 4 years. He's out, and he's the leader of the offensive line. Our left tackle's out. We've had to sign another guy. Not making excuses, but I do feel like the other teams have caught up. I don't necessarily think that Birmingham's not as good as they've been. I had a Birmingham fan text me earlier this morning asking me what I thought was really going on, and I shared with him, Birmingham's defense statistically is just as good, if not better, than what they've been the previous 3 years. It's on the offensive side. And it has some to do with the multiple quarterbacks. It's got some to do with the offensive line play. But all that being said, I really feel like, and I know Skip would not answer this question, and he would, so I didn't even mention it. But like I told Shane this morning when he reached out to me, I feel like our assistant coaches are really slipping compared to where they were. See, Skip had a hell of a staff the first 2 years. Then he loses the chief last year, and now it's this guy. When we did the long field goal attempt before halftime, I knew we were screwed because I've seen a kick 6 before. being an Alabama fan, but B, I knew we were kicking into the wind. Skip asked the special teams coach if we were in position, if he could make it from that far. The guy says yes or whatever he says, and I see Skip following him over the sideline, raising hell. He obviously didn't think he could make it from that far. And by then, we were kind of as either that or a Hail Mary. And then the overtime, the call that really cost us on the personal foul, which I thought he didn't hit him in the face. He corked him. He got him good. But I would have loved to have been able to challenge that. But we did challenge the holding call. Skip called up to the booth, which is 2 doors down from the press box where I was at. He asked for a number, which one of our guys got held. And the spotter in the booth gave Skip the wrong number. So when we challenged, it was an automatic loss because the dude absolutely got held. He got bear hugged by the left tackle, and it was number 90. And our spotter told coach it was number 96. Well, number 96 is Carlos Davis, and Carlos Davis was on the sidelines on that play. And Skip was not happy about that at all. I heard the conversation going down to the press box from one of the coaches that had literally said what had happened. And, there's definitely some problems. The armor has got a chink in it, but I still believe Birmingham can absolutely win it, but Birmingham could absolutely not make the playoffs. The teams are so close right now.
That's the thing that I love, Brett, about the challenges, about Coach's Challenge, is you have to be specific. Because I think it was Mike Pereira that said this on one of the games that I watched this weekend. Well, if you just say, well, I throw the flag, there was a penalty on that play. Well, I can't go back and check every lineman and check every receiver and check every angle that I possibly have to try to find something. He goes, you probably could if you wanted to. So, like you're alluding to, if those coaches aren't on point and they radio a wrong number down or whatever the case may be, well, that's just part of it, And
I agree with you, but then I disagree. And it's not that my team was involved because, in my opinion, they didn't deserve to win Friday night. I was very proud how they came back in the second half and got to overtime. But to me, the whole purpose of a challenge is if something was done against the rules, and it was plain as day. The guy got bear hugged, and like I told Skip, privately, I said, "What the hell does it matter what his number was? It was obvious that he got bear hugged, and it was a bad missed call that the ref didn't call it during the play. I thought challenges were supposed to be to get it right. Well, they didn't get it right, and yes, you can absolutely blame the coach, and we put that on Birmingham, but ultimately, if we're going to have challenges, are we, the purpose I thought was to get it right. And there's been 2 or 3 calls here in the last 2 weeks with Dean Blandino and multiple games that I really question, but that's why he gets paid the big bucks.
Well, I think, again, arguing about officials is age old.
That's never going to change.
I don't care what fan of what team you are. I don't care what the situation is. People are always going to, complain about the referees and they miss this and they miss that. I do personally like the way they have the Super Challenge set up because then it does put onus on the team not to screw that up. It puts onus.
And it was embarrassing that they screwed that up, and it's inexcusable. And right. I wanted to tell Coach, look, y'all just pay me for a weekend, and my little fat butt will sit up in the booth with binoculars, and I'll get the number right if that's all y'all need,
Right.
But, again, there's 7 other teams in the league, and y'all know I'm a league guy and not a team guy. To me, Birmingham had no one to blame but themselves to be in that position to begin with. But if it was in another game, I would still feel this way because I thought about it, and I'm like, it was just so obvious. It was just like that false start call that the guy missed against Arlington. One went Birmingham's way, one didn't. But the officials seem like again, I wish they did a little bit better job on the field. I know it's a tough job, and again, I know, like you said, people are going to be bitching about referees as long as there are referees. So.
But Ed, haven't we kind of been thinking this was possible for Birmingham for a while now? They've kind of just gotten by and they've done just enough to win, some last second stuff. Haven't we really thought it was going to catch up to Birmingham?
Well, I think we saw that Memphis was probably a little bit better than what their record showed that they were. And it's obvious. And I think, like Coach Holt said a couple weeks ago, that he really was concerned that his team was tired. They played a lot of night games. They've returned to Arlington at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, several weeks in a row. You lose the whole next day of practice because they're all sleeping until 2, 3 in the afternoon. And you hate to say that you called it, but I don't think that it was a big surprise to see them not having their A game.
Right.
And I guess you look at a team that was 0-4 coming into Birmingham. Was that the perfect opportunity for Birmingham to maybe take it for granted? I don't know. Could be.
Well, but Mike, if you look at it this way, Memphis played hard.
Yeah.
Memphis never gave up. They have been, and hats off to Coach Turner and his group of guys.
Yep.
They have still been playing their tails off, and they've been in almost every game. So to me, I think that speaks a lot to Coach Turner and his guys.
Absolutely, and they've been, and as a Panther, on the Panther side of things, I'm glad we're all done playing Memphis because if you're searching for wins and and you're looking at the schedule and you're thinking Memphis is going to be an easy couple, guess again, this is going to be a team that's going to fight you tooth and nail. They're getting another quarterback. Dresser Wynn looks pretty sharp. Hey, we'll see what happens going forward, but they're adding pieces. You got a wide receiver. In the running back too with
Wes Hills.
Wes Hills, oh my goodness! What a force he was last season for the Panthers. So, and we're great to see that he's back healthy from that injury. That was just devastating. I was there at Ford Field for that game, and when he went down, it was heartbreaking. But hey, good to see him coming back, and I wish him the best.
So Brett or Ed, let's hear from. I guess we already heard from Coach Holt, so we've got our.
But is there how do what the Birmingham fan base right now? I mean, you're sitting there, so the conference number 1 seed, it's still neck and neck between Michigan and Birmingham. Now, with Houston looking stronger,
with Houston one game back.
Yeah. Michigan hasn't played Houston yet. So this is going to be, the game that they have this weekend, Houston and Memphis. You want to talk about a game that is like, this could be like the season for these two teams here. So I can't wait to dive in to next week's matchups, because going forward too, we've called it the parity that we've talked about. This is gonna be that season where it's gonna come down to those last 2 weeks, and we may not. There's gonna be some. I think there's gonna be some. Depending on how the matchups fall, I think we may go into a tiebreaker situation, depending on how these the last half goes. But if you're looking for the exciting football here, and you may not have been following, but hey, if you're watching here, call your buddy, say, hey, these UFL games coming up, this is going to be pretty exciting. They all have high stakes here. No one's season's really over. So it's still, there's some that are hanging on thin ice there, or just by a thread, but there's no eliminations right now.
So Birmingham and Memphis was only the first of what the weekend had in store for good football. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game. We had Michigan and St. Louis And believe it or not, yes, there was a football game played that day
Yeah.
on the field. Let's watch the highlights, courtesy of the UFL.
Xavier Malone with a stint with the Atlanta. One-on-one coverage. Second and goal. Duggan. Makes his way through. It's another touchdown. Second and 8. Play action. Perkins to the end zone. Blake Turner comes up big, and Bryce Perkins is happy. Straight ahead. Come on. Touchdown, Panthers. 180. 180. They go with the pop pass, and it's an option two pass. And launching it is Jackson. Sweat play. Blake Jackson to the King Butler. What a score play.
Ooh. That is beautiful, Mike.
I mean, if you have to dig down into your trick plays, you know what they say about trick plays. You means you can't line up, blow for blow. You got to dig into the bag of tricks.
Well, my phone started blowing up during that game, especially in the first half, and I think it was the first time I ever really saw Mike get upset. So
Big game. This one meant a lot.
Mike was a little frustrated, as were others, and Coach Nolan was asked in the postgame presser about his two quarterback system, and this is what he had to say, courtesy of the UFL.
Coach Nolan, I was just curious if going forward, if you're going to stick with a starter at quarterback, or will you still be doing the rotation? Right now, I believe the Panthers are 1-2 with the rotations and 2-0 when there's a full-time starter in the game. Thank you.
Good question. We'll make that decision during the week. But very good question. I do need to compliment Bryce. Played an outstanding football game today, and Danny, when he was in there at the end of the first half, didn't do so well, but when he came back in the second half, he did some good things. That was good to see. It kept us on track with the way our offense was performing, and that was obviously when Bryce came out with he got hit. So, but anyhow, yeah, we'll make that decision during the week this week.
So,
and my reaction with that too, I mean, I get why that they asked the question about the quarterback situation, but I just hated it that Bryce was sitting right there next to Coach. Like, I wish there would be like better times to like ask, but not maybe the guys, the press doesn't get the opportunity to ask Coach Nolan when it's just him sitting by himself in front of a microphone. So I just thought it was a little awkward to talk about the quarterback situation with Bryce sitting right there. But I just I wish there was a better way where it was coach first and then the players and then to ask the questions. But all in all, however they do things over there. But at any rate, look, I watched the game. I've recorded the game and I watched it a few times, and a lot of fans that are upset about the 2 QB system, which I get it. I mean, I'm more so on the side of if the game plan was to have the 2 quarterbacks, that's fine. However, when a quarterback's playing as hot as what Bryce Perkins was, you have to adjust and just move forward with them. I don't hate the game plan, because I do think, but I did ask, like, from the jump, from our first game, home game against Birmingham, I asked Coach Nolan, because there's no preseason games. So his heart is in the right place. He wants to get guys on the field to get reps, right? So he can go play in the NFL. So I think I was thinking about this here. I think this is a fork in the road for the UFL of what they want to be. Do you want to be a pro football league in the spring? Which, when you think about pro football in the NFL, like Jared Goff, whoever your favorite football team is in the NFL, they're not doing 2 QB systems here. You know, like Jared Goff isn't subbing out so a quarterback can get some reps in, all right? Or do you want to be a developmental football league where you are going to be playing a lot of guys, mixing in here and there, right? So that's, I think, what the league needs to be. Moose says himself that he would like to be a pro football league, not as a standalone pro football league that just happens to be in the spring versus a developmental league for the NFL. So I think this is what do we want to be here? But they did decide on Bryce Perkins going forward. So you have your quarterback one going forward, and he's doing great things. Michigan had their chance to win the game. They've had the lead. There was plenty of lead changes in the game where this 2 QB system, you know, hindsight's always 20/20 out there. And I think, you know, for Panthers fans out there, it's just something that you just got to put behind. Let's move forward. DC on May 4th at Ford Field. We need everybody there. It's a very important game. They still have the 1 seed. Thank you to Memphis going forward. So onward.
Well,
So,
I think – go ahead, Ed.
No, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I think the biggest question is, and I think we talked about this prior to this weekend's games, is, you know, Michigan really hasn't beat anybody. You know, the teams that they've played with winning records, I mean, does that cause you any pause that they've played 2 teams with winning records and they're 0-2, and their 3 wins are against 3 teams that currently do not?
Can I answer this question?
Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
You know, Mike's a Michigan fan, and I think he's got a good rapport and relationship with head coach, just like I have with Skip. So there's certain things, you know, that we could probably be a little more open about on someone else's team and what we saw. And again, you know, Birmingham could go back and look. Birmingham could be 5-0 right now, or we could be 1-4. Michigan's 2 losses to me, I said it from the get-go. They had Birmingham where they wanted them, but I thought it was some dreadful play calling in the red zone, running it 4 times up the middle. When they did that, I just said, thank you. Thank you. You know, you bailed us out because you got a mobile quarterback. You do a read option and you know, play action. You got 3 different guys you got to defend. But no, they ran up the middle 4 times. And I always hung that on Nolan. And then this game, I'm sorry, it was back and forth. It was, if you guys didn't watch this game, it's well worth it. It really is. Take 2 hours out of your day, and even if you got to watch a quarter at a time, that game was a hell of a game. It was very entertaining. But again, I know you got game plans and everything in between, and Mike, you hinted around to it. Perkins was unconscious. St. Louis's defense, as good as it is and as talented as it is, they didn't have an answer for him. But when they took Perkins out for those 2 or 3 drives, it turned the whole game around. The whole game. And I'm not saying St. Louis wouldn't have somehow found a way to win anyways with Butler's 2 touchdown catches, but I felt like, once again, Nolan's decisions kind of did them in Saturday night.
Well, we also saw the reemergence of Hakeem Butler, as Amanda said in the comment line. I do know that on that second touchdown that he had when Blake Jackson did the end around and then he threw it, I'm yelling to everybody around me, do the conversion, quick, don't let them throw the play. And then, it didn't dawn on me that they had lost their super challenge, because on that play, it happened, the catch happened right down in front of me. And to me, it was plain as day that Hakeem pushed off to make that second touchdown from when he caught that from Blake Jackson. So in the presser, head coach Nolan was asked about that, and courtesy of the UFL, this is what he had to say about it.
Obviously, the super challenge is kind of a hard thing to try to figure out, especially in the middle of a game when emotions are high. Down the stretch of the game, you didn't have it. That second touchdown to Hakeem Butler, questionable if there was a little bit of push off. Would you have tried to challenge that play if you could have?
Well, it's easy to second guess. Yes, I would have, but again, that's neither here nor there. That's what happens, when you use your challenge. I thought we had a good challenge in the first half when I called it, but we were unsuccessful. So, like you said, I lost the challenge. Challenge flags. I mean, you really got to think about them. Now, it's they're very valuable. You don't want to just use them, when it's not really something that has to do with a lot of field position or points. But I thought I was making the right call when I did, and I was obviously wrong.
You only get one. So I'm thinking too. What I've seen too, like you want to try to hang on to that super challenge for as long as you can. And then if there's an opportunity to, use it, like Coach Nolan said, they made the best decision at the time to use it, and you want to have it for like those important, those big plays in the game is what you want to have them for.
But Mike, how many games? I've watched every game this year, every team, every game. Do you know who gets burnt? Michigan in this case. You know who gets burnt by the Super Challenge? Coaches that use them in the first half. It never fails that they use it in the first half. It's not successful. And in a close game, which most of these UFL games end up being, in the second half, something happens. Like Hakeem pushes off. And guess what? There's no flag and there's no Super Challenge. Because we decided to use it in the first half. And to me...
And sometimes it's just... To me, sometimes they're super challenge. I mean, they use their challenge on a real nothing burger play.
Well,
I mean, it could be a 8-yard difference in where they shot the ball, or
my thought process goes to, and Coach Nolan said it, either a big play or a scoring play. How many times I've seen coaches use a super challenge on stuff that is not either one of those?
Right.
And then when it comes to a situation, do I agree with Ed? Yeah. He clearly extended the arm. Whether he pushed off or not, a lot of times when you see the arm extended like that, it's going to get called. But you use your super challenge in the first half. The first half. How many teams?
Again, you've got refs though, Eric, and I know, but you got refs on the field that should have seen that. And everybody that watches the show knows Ed and Eric's St. Louis fans. So I wasn't going to bring it up, but thankfully, like you guys said, Ed's man enough to admit it. He brought it up to me, what was it, last night or the night before? And I said, Ed, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm glad you brought it up because I wasn't going to say anything. But I said, I'll be damned if the first touchdown that Hakeem did, he pushed off worse than he did the second time because he literally pushed the defender down on the ground, and that's why he was 20 yards wide open. And that's what got me scratching my head of how, I get Eric's right. They blew the super challenge on something stupid, but how in the world did the refs miss both of them? Because if you go back and watch them, the first touchdown by Butler, he literally shoved the defender down.
Plus, it's a scoring play. When all scoring plays be reviewable.
But like I said, I wasn't going to bring it up. I was glad Ed brought it up a couple nights ago.
Well,
I'm still sick over that game. Still sick over that game. Still sick over that game.
Michigan's good enough to win the whole thing, Mike. They've got everything in front of them. These clutch situations, that some of the coaching needs to be a little better, and I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, and and I hadn't felt a loss like this, since I was a growing up a big Tom Brady fan. This one felt like a loss like this. It felt like Colts Patriots 2009 for me, where it was a huge game that you always want, the Colts fans, in this case the Battlehawks fans, the dome at America Center felt like the RCA dome, and and the not the Patriots, but the Panthers. It is just and Amanda said, what was the and it's just two teams, two franchises, deep rooted. And they talk about the USFL, XFL deals all done. No, it's not. This one, you have the heart the heart and soul of the XFL and the roots, the very roots of the USFL. Like the US, like I feel like if you want to talk about, if you were going to compare a team in the USFL to like Michigan Panthers to compare to an NFL team, I would say they'd be kind of like the Packers. You know, the first champion in spring football, historically one of like those teams in the league, and you get so I think like. And then a little revenge too. I'm sure those like, oh yeah, from that Jake Bates game last year, let's get them back. You know, like there's a lot to.
But
I think it's a new rivalry here.
The thing about that I don't know, that I kind of look at it, like this. You know, and Ed and I know this as St. Louis fans. Everybody wants to bag on St. Louis. We'll talk about some of it later, and we'll talk about a little bit here. The St. Louis crowd made that feel like a real game.
They did.
That place was electric.
Coach Nolan in the press, post-game presser had a lot of comments to make about the atmosphere, but evidently, we only got so much room for video, so I couldn't get all of it. But here's what Coach Beck said at the presser, courtesy of the UFL.
Say thank you to the fan base today. That was incredible. I mean, every third down, fourth down, that's what it's all about. That's the experience that we're trying to give our players and our league and really the other team. I mean, honestly, like, you got to play in these elements, and these elements help guys raise their bar and take it to the next level. And we just got a huge game next week, a divisional opponent, and I'm just asking everybody again, like I always say, bring a friend. Bring one friend. But, man, it was loud today. It was a factor, and I'm really appreciative of the fan base for coming out and supporting us.
But that's what I'm talking about is, if I was a player and not knowing anything about the UFL but you saw a little bit and say, where do you want to play at? I want to play in those environments. Mm-hmm. Like, even as a Michigan player, that feels like, yeah.
And sometimes that can work against St. Louis too, because like he said, the players like to play when it's electric. And it helps the visiting team to get up, just like it does the home game. Team.
Players like playing on, they like going into those road environments. So if you have a good road environment, like, oh man, we're going into the Dome at America Center, where it's gonna be rocking in there, and what better environment to play in and show your best. It's what an environment though. I think that was huge, and shout out to the ESPN production of that game. That one was fantastic.
But when you pair the game on the field, and then you put the fans around it, like the noise levels watching on TV, and Ed, you were there, like that felt like football. That felt like two teams just greasing it out, and the crowd getting into it.
You listen to some fan bases out there, and they seem to think that 5 people can be louder than what St. Louis is when we have a home game. So, whatever. As the answer I'll give to that. But anyway, so they had Butler at the presser as well. This is what he had to say about finally being back.
You were, so Max threw you the first pass of the game, and it was a drop, but he threw you the ball and he tested, the defender. How did that feel just to be back out there and just running around again and just getting thrown the ball and getting an opportunity?
I mean, it was an amazing feeling. Like Coach said, just to be out there. I've missed 3 weeks. Definitely didn't want to be out that long, just me being the competitor I am, but that's why coaches did a smart thing, and as you see, it paid off today. But just to get the first pass, Phil believing in me and Max trusting me, and us getting the right coverage, it was a good thing. I wish we completed it. I could have scored on that one too, but it was fun to just be out there. I was more ecstatic about the blocking and just being out there hitting guys than I was even about catching the ball.
And
so yeah, I believe what you say, Mike, because Abdul Beecham, who we had the pleasure of interviewing earlier this season, – '– '– '– '– '– '– '– '– – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – he was pretty pumped, said some things about the Michigan players and vice versa. And I think you're right. I think that there's enough energy here. Too bad they don't play twice a year, because I
Right.
definitely think,
They might.
They might, yeah. Let's see with the, I think it's a battle for the Midwest. It's and with well, who knows? Let's see if there's any division alignment here. Maybe the UFL goes, hey, I think we got something here.
But Michigan and St. Louis have played twice. Last year and this year. No, last year they started the season off, and that's when Bates hit that 64-yarder to beat us on the final play of the game. And then this one came down right to the wire too, and we got to stop on 4th down. So Michigan and St. Louis games have been pretty special so far.
How about that with that 4th down? They're just trying to get across, and here comes all the Michigan players trying to push them across. And you got the Battlehawk fans pushing back. Like, that's game of inches. I think how many times have we brought up any given Sunday that speech?
Yeah, a lot.
since you've played it, Eric.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, I will tell you this: if you're an NFL fan, which we are,
yeah.
If you don't watch an NFL or a UFL game and see the True Line technology and appreciate that it tells you 2 inches short, 21 inches short, whatever it might be, man, that's on you. There is no reason why the NFL does not have this.
Well, they like it. They're going to steal it and then not give the UFL any credit.
Right. Like they do with everything else, right. But I'm just saying, there's no reason why this is not in the NFL.
So that was game number 2. We got to move on, man. It's almost
that's true. That's right.
That was game number 2. So we're on to game number 3. It was just as electric. We had DC at Arlington.
Oh, crazy game.
Let's take a look at the highlights courtesy of the UFL.
State, his running back. Perez to throw on 1st down, looking down the middle of the field. One hand is all I need. Deontay Burnett, the man of Troy, to the house. Ready? Go. Defenders going quick, backside pressure, downfield, caught, waltzing in is Cornell Powell. On why that one was called the holding. South biggest gain of the day for Balaj, but he gets it back and more, galloping into the end zone for the Renegades. Ready, Jackson, Tama with the kick, and he is in. Formation for Ta'amu. Jackson, end zone, DC. Yes, sir! Keep the clock rolling. Cannot take a sack. Perez, end zone, picked off, ball game. Josh Proctor puts a nail in the coffin on the biggest comeback.
At halftime, it would have been pretty easy to say Arlington's got this game in hand, but
yep.
I think I sent a text out to you guys the second half saying, you know what? DC's just hanging around.
Yeah.
Just hanging around. And what a game. And what was surprising was they made the comment that was the biggest comeback in UFL history. And I'm like, it was only down 15 points. But, evidently that was the case.
Well,
I think we could. Yeah, go ahead, Ed. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I tell you.
You think Chris is a DC fan?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes.
But yeah, I think so.
I think
so.
I still cannot believe DC is sitting at 4-1. You know how many times they threw the football this weekend? Mike, do you know?
Well, I mean, I'm just going on a limb and say probably more than they, more often because the scoring highest
46.
Beautiful.
Okay, 46 throws. What do you suppose the completion percentage was?
Well, I meant, was it? Are we still under 50 with Mr. Jordan Tam?
No, we're exactly at 50. If I told you before a game that a quarterback is going to be 23 of 46, and it's been like this for every game. I mean, I'm to the point where it's not even worth talking about anymore because he barely gets to the 50% mark. He's had 3 games that were below 50% completion percentage. But he finds a way to make that throw, to make, the important ones. It's nuts to me.
And this is what Coach Harris had to say about that. He addressed his team at halftime when it looked like Arlington was well on their way. This is what he had to say, courtesy of the UFL.
Jasmine, D210 Sports. I have a question for each of you. Coach, you told your team at halftime that Luis Perez would definitely give up a couple of interceptions in the second half. I was just curious, how were you so confident in that message, and did you anticipate that would be so impactful in the second half?
Yeah, great question. I think one thing we're very good up front, and we can we can put some pass rush on the quarterback, and we can get to the quarterback and hit him legally, and we treat that as a stat. Any hit on the quarterback to us is a stat legally, not illegal. So we knew at some point that if we can continue to get close to him, eventually it's going to come to our guys on the back end, and eventually that happened. A couple of times the one earlier in the second half. We stepped out of bounds, unfortunately. He didn't get established first, get his feet back in bounds. But we knew if we get close to him, we put some hits on him, that eventually some will come our way.
And just like you talk about, Jordan only having a 50% completion rate, even despite that, this is what Jordan had to say.
Jordan, when it comes to the score from the first half to the second half, not a big difference, 7-point difference, but there was a huge difference in momentum. Yeah. I was just wondering what felt different to you, and specifically what was going through your head in that last drive, y'all taking the lead with less than a minute left.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last week, and, our main goal going in from week to week is to learn from our, mistakes from the first week. We started off slow and had a chance to come back and win or tie the game and go get a chance to win. So this week we knew we were down, but we just needed to keep stacking and trusting our offense, trusting our guys, and keep driving down the field. And that's exactly what we did. And coming down to the last drive, everyone was confident in the huddle. I mean, you could see it in everyone's eyes, like we're going to go down there and score. And it just takes that confidence to, rise. And all these guys did it, and all these guys shown it. And it was just amazing.
So, like Chris says here, as you talk about 50% completion rate, but
right.
When you look at his stats, if someone told you he was going to throw 3 touchdowns and rush for another one, they'd tell you we're winning.
It's crazy. Yes, Chris, you're exactly right. If you'd have said before the game, he's going to throw 3 TDs and rush for one, I'd be like, oh my God, DC's blowing him out. But on the flip side of it, if you say quarterback's going to be 23 for 46, I'm going to say, well, they're behind, so they had to throw a lot. And 2, he only completed 50% of the passes, so they lost. I mean, it's just something that doesn't jive in my football coach's head that these stats are working out. The one thing that it tells me, and I know you're a DC fan, Chris, but the one thing that it tells me is this. This formula normally does not work, which means it might work for a while. It might work through the season, but you get in the playoffs, this is not normally a working formula for success.
So
maybe I'm wrong, but it's not.
When you look at that, Arlington had 27 points at halftime. They ended up with 33. So it was definitely, a tale of 2 halves. The question becomes, did DC's defense really ramp up, or did Chuck Long go conservative? This is what Coach Stoops had to say about it at his presser, courtesy of the UFL.
Jasmine, D210 Sports. Coach, y'all went from offensively 27 points in the first half, only 6 in the second. From your perspective, what kept y'all off the scoreboard in those last 2 quarters?
Yeah, some of it's us, some of it's them. I mean, you got to give their coaching staff and players credit for making plays and hanging in there to give themselves a chance to come back, and they did. And, we needed, obviously another score or move the football to eat up time. And they did a good job. I thought their defensive front, they got a ton of pressure on us. They had 4 sacks, I think, but 4 or 5 sacks, I'm not sure, and a ton of pressure hitting Luis while he's throwing the football. So they did a better job up there and getting after him. And, and then we popped some runs.
Now, Brett, you and I were talking after the game, and we kind of got into a discussion about Chuck Long. Of course, he's a friend of the show, but you kind of gave me your thoughts on his play calling in the second half as an offensive coordinator, and what did you say about that, Brett?
Man, with these offenses right now, they've really stepped their game up. Every team has last couple of weeks. I just felt like, yes, I agree with Coach Stoops. Part of it was DC in their front. They've got the top 2 sack guys in the league right now. I think they both share 4.5 sacks. Their DNs. But I do feel like Arlington took their foot off the pedal too and was trying to just kind of run the clock out, and they got caught doing it. And I felt like that was a lot of their losses last season. Last second losses was maybe they were a little too conservative. I mean, they were kind of wide open in the first half, and it was a heck of a game. But I definitely feel like it was as much Arlington's play calling as it was DC's. Their second half play on both sides of the ball.
But Ed, don't you think? I mean, we interviewed Coach Long, and you saw on that last series where Coach Long said, "You've got it. You've got it." He wasn't calling plays in that last series. Don't you think that if Luis Perez was not on board with what they were doing, that he would have said, "Coach, we got to open this thing back up"? I mean, don't you think? Because that's the feeling I got.
A relationship, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can't believe that if it wasn't like everybody was kind of on board. Because here's the danger with that, Brett, and I agree with you. When you have a running back like Balaj, and this could be any team. This could be St. Louis with Sailors. This could be – name your team. It doesn't matter. When you have that kind of running back, you can almost get lured into believing, listen, we're going to eat the crap out of this clock.
And he had a terrible fumble there in the fourth quarter.
That's the thing. So when I was watching that game and that fumble happened, I said – this is exactly what I said in my head. I said, this is what kills the run the clock mentality. Because now you've put yourself behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, as I was sitting there, because obviously we have a relationship with Coach Long, and I'm sitting there trying to get into his head thinking, okay, what's he doing? I can't disagree with that because the UFL clock runs different. It runs different. I mean, you can go through these games. The amount of drives you get is not anywhere near what you see in some of the other leagues, NCAA, NFL, whatever.
Got to make them count.
Yeah, and you got to make them count. So when you get to that, all right, we're going to run the clock mentality, you can really put a hurt on the clock if it works. The problem is when Balaj fumbles it and it don't work, now you sit here and we have these discussions about, well, they kind of went well, I mean, did they? Or was the fumble just kind of the killer?
Well, you
to
could
me,
tell
the fumble
by
was the killer.
Balaj's face when he was walking off the field that he had just made a big mistake.
100%. Because DC had some momentum. All Arlington has to do is string a couple first downs there, and we might be talking about a totally different game.
Yeah.
But you put the ball on the ground, and here we are. We're talking about
turnovers. You cannot turn the ball over.
No, So even the best laid plans and clock management, how the UFL clock works versus the NFL, can backfire if you don't take care of the football. And listen, I think we all know this. At least I do, and I know you guys do too. Turnovers in the UFL, to me, are amplified by at least 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, because of the running clock, like you said, there's limited possessions.
You give a possession up due to a fumble, an interception, whatever it is, it's a killer. And so, I mean, yeah, you could argue they did go conservative, but I would also argue Elijah doesn't fumble that ball, we could be talking about a different game. Definitely.
Very much so.
I'm not putting it all in Balage's lap, but I'm just saying there's different things that happen.
It's a turnover. It's a big part of it.
Yeah,
So
correct.
Well, it all set the stage for some big matchups coming up in week 6. But let's move on to our last game of the week. Houston at San Antonio. San Antonio finally getting a home game, courtesy of the UFL. We'll talk on the back end.
What we got? Down as you would expect, the power look. He gives straight ahead, a burst of speed, and Mary to the end zone for the Roughnecks. Second most passing yards in school history in the SEC. And an interception. It bounced right to Williams. Rashad Williams. And a pick six for the Roughnecks with 3 penalty markers down.
All right, the ruling on the field is an interception return for a touchdown. During the return, legal block.
So when I had Leo Yamas on the show a few weeks back, we had went over San Antonio's schedule, and I made the comment back then that if San Antonio could come out of those first 6 games at 3-3, with having 3 of their final 4 games at home, that they had a real chance to have a push for the playoffs. This game here for San Antonio was about as devastating of a loss as they could have ever had.
Absolutely. And
my major question to you guys is, and Mike, I'll direct this to you. How does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, this is just, and again, we can channel this right back to the parity of the league, how all the teams are much improved, and then and just the quality of play and quality of players that are in the league now. No game is safe. There's no gimmies in this league. And when we talk about a new lease on life potentially for Houston here. I know with San Antonio, that was just such a devastating loss. I don't know if there's still time for them to turn it around, but with the opportunity that Houston has right now, and I'm just looking at their schedule here, you haven't played Michigan yet. If you go in 3-3 in the second half here, you have Memphis. If you beat Memphis, you're 3-3. You get Birmingham, which Birmingham, they're a tired team. They're on, they go back to Birmingham there, and who's the quarterback going to be? Is everyone going to be healthy? That is a very, very key piece for Birmingham. Is just they just want to get healthy, and then you have Michigan, DC, and then at Michigan again. So Houston fans, you got 3 games here that. The fan base, you got to rally around this team right now. They're going to need every Roughneck fan that you can grab. Use the approach St. Louis has. Bring a friend with you, because help this team get in playoff position. It is not over by any stretch here. You can get, if at 3-3, that is a new lease on the season. But
Brett, how do you go? How do you go from beating DC, the top team on the XFL side, 24-18, and then turn around and get absolutely dog stomped in your home opener in front of just shy of 15,000 Brahma fans.
And
How does that happen?
Before you answer that, Brett, let's hear what Coach Johnson had to say contributed to the victory. And then once you hear what he says, courtesy of the UFL, Brett, you can respond.
Coach, what were some things you guys did that gave San Antonio's offense some trouble in this game?
Well, I thought the one thing we did, we hammered the run game, and I thought they really came down and we tackled well. You know, there's explosive players all over on that football field, and we never gave the quarterback a chance to really run it on us. I thought Chris mixed it in with zone and man concepts, and you know, it was good. And we sacked him and we put pressure and we got it down on the ground.
So Brett, my question is still the same. How does this happen?
I think me and Ed talked about it over the weekend, and I was just, again, it was close to 15,000 fans, which their first home game of the season, which actually was a little more than any game they drew last season, which was a real positive sign. You know, fans were excited. Hey, we just beat the number one team. We can go on a run. You know, we're 1-3. We could be 2-3, go to Birmingham, get our revenge, and we're back 3-3 where we need to be. And Houston just absolutely laid the wood to them. I mean, again, I'm like you. I watch just about every game and every play I can. And I called Ed fourth quarter. I was out running errands. I was like, man, this is hard to watch. You know, and I'm proud of Houston. I'm glad for Houston and the Rough Neck fans and KJ and all those. But equally brutal for San Antonio, considering they've still got 3 home games remaining. And now, you know, you're going in, and who knows what will happen Sunday. They might beat Birmingham by 50 points, but you're going into Birmingham with a pissed-off Stallions team. And Coach Holt's extremely, it seemed, you know, he's got some vigor in him. He's very passionate and prideful. And, I saw Marty say it was 9.5-point line. Wow. I mean, just think about our preseason predictions, fellas. Last season, when we had Michigan at the bottom, San Antonio at the bottom, well, they both proved us wrong. One of them beat Birmingham. One of them could have beat Birmingham. They could have both been facing each other in a championship game last year. Michigan's still doing their thing. They've got everything in front of them. And San Antonio has just fallen off a cliff.
This is what Coach Pardee had to say about the Kellen Mond struggles in his presser, courtesy of the UFL.
Coach, what were some of the things, especially early in the game, that led to some struggles for Kellen Mond and the offense trying to get going?
You know, obviously the first 2 drives that we had, not being able to sustain and kind of get that first down. There's a lot that goes into an offense, in my opinion, psychologically, that's really important. And that first down is a big one. And so for us, you know, if I remember right, I think it was our 3rd drive of the game was where we actually were able to push the sticks a little bit. And with that, you know, I think it just goes back to, you know, we need as a team to trust what we're doing. You know what I mean? And I know they do. And then with that, you know, we got to put them as coaches in good positions to where they can execute and make plays. You know, so with that, I think it was just inconsistency. You know, it's really tough when you're starting your opening drive. You know, when a sack occurs, you know, that kind of puts you behind the sticks, and then from there you kind of have to dig your way out. So, you know, I can do a lot to get them in rhythm earlier, and that's something we'll be better at.
Yeah, that was even the commentary team said, well, they thought it was, you know, probably wasn't the time to make that quarterback change with Jarrett Quarantano taking reps. You know, that's what they said, that Colin Mond they looked like he wasn't doing that awful of a job to make the QB switch there.
Well, let me tell you, San Antonio, and let's just stay on one side of the ball right this second. If you fellas remember last season, how freaking tough their defense was. I know they've had a couple different roster spots, but statistically, I think they owned the league last year defensively, and they rallied to the ball. They didn't miss tackles. I remember how Birmingham struggled immensely in San Antonio last year. Then look at what they did to St. Louis in the playoff game. And the championship game was what it was. But I'm telling you, from week one of this season, their defense has not been a shell of itself from last season. And that's without us even touching on the offensive side. I mean, I don't know. I know Wade is not there now. I know that he's missed a couple games this year.
Wade's not
But
coming
even
back.
when Wade was there, their defense didn't even look like who the hell are these guys?
Yeah, Wade's not coming back.
No. And Mond and we've touched on their offensive struggles this year with not getting the ball enough to Lovett and McFarland, and then they're sketchy. One game Mond's all right. The other game he's not all right at all. But still, when you thought of the San Antonio Brahmas last year, you thought of defense and causing turnovers, and they've got to be near the bottom defensively this year in the league.
Well, as we talked about before, how many carries did McFarland have?
Not
6.
And we had talked about the recipe just a week ago, and the recipe worked almost to perfection. 15 touches, caught one ball out of that backfield for like a 15-yard touchdown. You would have thought, okay, the groundwork's been laid. Get ready for more McFarland, and they reverted right back to where they were before.
Right.
I don't get it.
And I'm with you, Brett. San Antonio is so hard to understand. What happened to the defense? Like, all we talked about last year and we talked about prior to the start of this year, fast, gang tackle, felt like they were playing with 17 guys type of thing. And all of a sudden, from the start of the season, that has been a nothing burger. And then you get on the flip side of it, McFarland is basically a nothing burger. Kirkland, because, if you were a Michigan fan or a Battlehawk fan or a Birmingham fan, if you said, hey, there were two guys you want to take off San Antonio, who would they be? McFarland?
Yeah, Kirkland and McFarland. I'll take them in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and it's like they're not even existent. Like, if we look, they're 1-4. How many impact plays last year did those guys have, especially in the second half of the season, compared to the first half of the season this year?
But what did we say about Kirkland though? We made the comment at the beginning of the season that they had to have someone besides Kirkland in their wide receiving core, because if you're playing a good defense, the defense is going to be able to keep a wrap on him. Then what are you going to do?
I got this. San Antonio's
they got a wrap on him, and they have no answer for Plan B.
Yep, underneath, over the top.
And San Antonio right now, they're 8th in the league, last in the league in total defense.
I figured they were close to last. The only thing similar about this San Antonio team to last year's San Antonio team is they wear the same uniforms and play in the same stadium. That's it. That's it.
To me, and Ed, I think you would agree. I think we've talked about this. San Antonio is the most shocking team to me as to what the hell is going on. Did they have some internal turmoil when Coach Smith left? Yeah. But Wade Phillips was still there. It kind of seemed like a next man up type of thing. But it just seems like the train is off the tracks.
So
do we play San Antonio 4 more times? That's what it feels like right now. And I would have never said that at the beginning of the year.
So if Houston can get by Memphis this weekend and get to 3-3,
they have a season.
They've got a shot. But who knows? Maybe we'll get the UFL's version of 30 for 30, and we'll find out what happened to the 2025 San Antonio team, because it's a mystery to me.
Hey,
it is an absolute mystery to me.
Hats off hats off to the Houston Roughneck coaching staff and players. They,
Yeah.
you know,
It wasn't
we were
100% San Antonio. Houston had something to do with that too. So
we were 100%. You know, well, CJ's not the guy. You know, da da da. Well, you know what? I've talked to him. I've interviewed him a couple times. He was always upbeat. He was like, "Hey, we're doing," you know, and so, you know, maybe that's starting to translate because they played hard, and San Antonio could not match them even this much. It was
No.
embarrassing. If I was a San Antonio fan, I'd be like, "Oh my god."
And if Birmingham can get their offense on track this weekend, it looked like San Antonio coming to town is just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, and it's too bad. It's too bad for San Antonio, like you were talking about, that had such a nice crowd.
Yeah.
Home opener. You hope that the crowd, you know, still comes back for their next home game and gives them another shot. But San Antonio is just going to have to do better. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, no question.
So what we're going to do now is let's take a break and hear from our sponsor, Wild Sun Winery. And when we get back, it's going to be time for Eric's Studs and Duds. We will be right back. Let's kick it off, and with a hat that only Eric can pull off, it's time for the
cream rise to the top. Oh yeah.
I am telling you, the studs list this week is long and I think very warranted. So I think I will again start with the defense because, I mean, guys, aside from the Houston-San Antonio game, the three games we got with Memphis, Birmingham, and Michigan and St. Louis, and DC and Arlington, they were phenomenal. They were must-see TV. So without further ado, defensively, I've got linebacker Steel Chambers for Memphis, 10 tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Anthony Hines for DC, 10 tackles, 6 solo, 1 sack, and 1 tackle for loss. And that must be the only defense that I have on here. I've got a couple of shout-outs. The Birmingham running game, 148 total yards. Case Cookus accounted for 83 of those. And then the Houston Roughnecks. I mean, I love great stories. And Houston's a great story compared to the season they had last year, compared to the season that they're having this year. Wide receivers, D. Anderson for Memphis, 4 receptions, 93 yards, 1 touchdown along a 78. Siosa, is that right, Mike? Siosa Mariner, Michigan, 6 receptions, 111 yards. And my man from Iowa State, Hakeem Butler, 2 receptions, 124, 2 touchdowns. And then the quarterbacks, Dresser Wynn. Memphis, I think, has found themselves a quarterback. He was 17 of 29, 235, and 1 touchdown for a 96 QBR. You know, Bryce Perkins, even in a loss, Michigan definitely has himself a quarterback, and I think the 2 quarterback system should definitely be gone. He was 21 of 25 for 235 and 2 touchdowns for a 132.5. And as I thought from the beginning of the season, who was going to start for St. Louis. Max Duggan, 9 of 12, very clandestine there, for 124 and 1 touchdown, but he had 70 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns for a 135.4 QBR rating. You know, Jordan Ta'amu is either on the duds or studs. And this week he lands on the studs, 23 of 46, 308, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, had 37 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. And then Luis Perez in the losing effort, you know, the one knock that I have on Luis, and I think you guys all know what it is. There's one point during the game, and Coach Harris mentioned it at halftime and then at his press conference when he was asked about it. Luis finds a way to give the team other points with an interception, whether it be a pick six or just a really bad pick six deep in their side of the field. I don't know, but
yeah, Coach called it at halftime.
Yeah, and sure enough, he comes out, and here it is.
Yep.
Here you go. Like, it's just a one decision. The interception at the end of the game, that's fine, whatever. But that one decision really changed things. So, duds real quickly. San Antonio quarterback room. Whoa. I mean, these stats are scary, but these are stats together. 10 of 24, 64 yards, 2 interceptions, and an 18 QBR.
Oh,
if I'm a San Antonio fan, if I'm a San Antonio coach, I'm going, man, I don't know. We need to, tryouts, whatever you want to do. The Renegades defense give up a 37 spot. If you'd have told me before the game, Arlington's going to score 33. What are you guys thinking?
Game over.
I'm thinking a 10, 13-point win, and they give up 37. What happened to the Arlington defense? So they do make the duds list. Sorry, Mike. Coach Mike Nolan. All I put behind him was thank you for Danny Etling. Just want to throw that out there.
Be nice.
Sorry, Brett. Coach Holtz. End of the half clock management. That return by Memphis should have never happened. I know that the special teams coach was in his – but that still should never have happened. Birmingham is better than that. With a Coach Holtz-led team, they are better than that. And finally, and I don't have the stats written down here, but I will pull them up here for you real quick. The Birmingham passing game. What's wrong, Brett? 126 yards, 15 completions, 15 of 33. To me, that is the scary part for Birmingham going forward is they've got to find some offense, man. If they don't, oof.
Well, I think it really starts with the line. Case hit some pretty balls, but again, we've had 4 guys this year miss games because their kid was having a baby. It's just, and Skip told me, it's just like he said in press conference. It's been ultra frustrating. He's dealing with some adversity this season that he hasn't dealt with in the past, and I do think the other teams have gotten better. Again, I'm gonna be honest with you. I still feel like there's 5 teams that can win this whole thing right now.
But don't you think? And I think maybe we'd all agree, maybe we won't. If you disagree, that's fine. What you just said with, the teams have all gotten closer. It's the little things that are really going to start popping up. You know what? Maybe last year there were some little things at Birmingham, but because they're winning, we didn't pay attention to it. Maybe he had a dumb challenge and we were just like, we didn't pay attention to it because Birmingham won 27-13. But because
a lot of assistance the last 2 years.
Right, but I'm just saying because teams are closer now, a bad challenge by a team can cost you at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So, we might really be sitting in that situation where a lot of those things become way more important and way more magnified during the course of a game. So
loose change starts adding up.
Yep. Studs and duds for week 5.
That's where you don't want to. There's plenty of places you don't want to be, and one of those is on Eric's duds
list. You don't want to be on the duds. If you're on the studs, you don't want to be on the duds.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the duds list.
Definitely not.
Let's part the Red Sea and talk real quick about Brett's power rankings for heading into week 6.
Controversial power rankings, right, Brett?
Yeah. It made me feel a little better yesterday because I told Ed I saw a lot of similar ones out there that people put out. I guess the most controversial is probably having St. Louis at 2, and let me justify that. I just can't put Arlington at 2 right now, although I still think they've got the absolute talent and potential to win the whole thing. They're one of my 5 teams. They've lost 2 games in a row. I can't have them at 3. There's no arguing number 1. St. Louis, now that they've got Butler back, they played a really good Michigan team the other night, and whether Coach Nolan helped out or not, the Battlehawks, it was back and forth, fantastic game. I could have had Michigan at 3. That's where I might, looking back on it, maybe there was a little – Michigan's good. Birmingham's at 5 where they belong. That's the last place of the 3 and 2 teams. They've got defense is going to keep them in every game this year like they have, but they've got to be more efficient offensively. I still think we got a couple holes in the offensive line, and who knows who's going to be quarterback from week to week with the injury situation. Houston at 6, watch out. I'm proud for all the Roughneck fans, and Houston really needed this. Man, they 2 wins in a row, got a chance to go 3-3 and only be a game out of the playoffs. Playing Memphis this weekend. Memphis at 7. Look, they've only won 1 game, but they almost beat DC. They beat Birmingham. They probably should have beat Houston. Memphis is, now that they've got David Davis back, now they signed Wes Hills. Dressler Wynn looked fantastic the other night. Every time Birmingham was this close to sacking him, he would throw the ball to the right. He would sling it to the left. He would throw it from behind his back. He would bend over and shoot it out of you-know-what, and it would find a receiver. Got to give him credit. And San Antonio, I mean, it is what it is, fellas. Like I said, the only thing, San Antonio's got a good fan base. We follow a lot of the Horns Ford guys. They've got quite a few super fans. I really like Andy Gonzalez that runs UFL Access. He's down there in San Antonio. I hate it for them and the fans. Again, they haven't had a good season, but my God, they had one of the biggest, best wins of the season going to DC and beating them. And you go from one extreme all the way to, Sunday, what the hell is this? They're at 8, and that's my power rankings. Again, I've seen some where they've got Arlington at 2, Michigan at 2. Really, there's a lot of flipping and flopping between St. Louis, Arlington, and Michigan, but I think everyone else is definitely where they should be at 5, 6, 7, 8, and at the 1 spot.
What I love about this, Brett, is between 6 and 1, halfway through the season, 2 games separate 6 to 1.
Yeah.
And that's what we want.
Yeah.
We want competitive, good games. And
this is what we begged for last season, and it didn't happen.
3 out of the 4 games this weekend were must-see TV.
And this will be the same thing again. I'm looking at the schedule now, and we'll be picking these games shortly. 3 out of the 4 are like playoff type games here.
Every week. Every week.
And not only that, but we found out today that they are moving the Defender Michigan game from ESPN2 over to ESPN, which is a good thing. That's for sure. That's a good thing.
And Brett, you bring up how they, we don't get the streaming numbers, But maybe they were looking at that, but whoa, maybe they had some good numbers that we don't know about, or something that they liked, where it's like, we got to move this game to ESPN, the mothership channel.
Yeah.
This will be a fun weekend too, just like last weekend.
So then we have viewership numbers that come out, and Brett, what's your thoughts on those?
Well, we talked about it before. I think all of us kind of talked about this. We've seen a lot of this coming with the NFL drafts, and then you think, the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs. It was really a perfect storm. My guess would have been 600,000 to 700,000, but I think we did have probably a 10-15%, 20% drop off because of the draft and the other events that went on Friday. I was a little disappointed in that. St. Louis and Michigan, again, Saturday night game, that's 615,000. But again, folks, ESPN does not include the streaming viewership in there like Fox and ABC does. I don't know why they do that. I don't know how they get away with that when Fox and ABC publishes theirs. So you got 615. You could have very easily probably had 900,000 total watch that game. I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there. 545 with DC and Arlington. Again, you probably add 200,000-300,000 streaming to that at least. And then the Sunday game. I mean, it is what it is. You've had a Houston team that's really, really struggled for 1.5 seasons, and San Antonio was 1-3, and thankfully that was the lowest rated game Sunday because it was ugly. It was like men against boys. But I'm really anxious now that we've got so many contenders in play. Now that we've got the NFL draft out of the way, let's see what these ratings are this weekend.
So with that, we're going to move on to another topic.
Hey, real quick, Ed, real quick. All these attendance naysayers, I forgot to send this to you today. As bad as we knew the preseason attendance or ticket sales were going, I want to say through 5 weeks this season, we're within 100 or 200 fans of tickets dispersed from last season. So we've done a good job catching up, considering what happened in the offseason with all the turnover with the ticket sales department.
So, looking back on week 5, we arguably had 3 out of the 4 games that could have easily been labeled as the best 3 games we've had so far in the league this year. But this is why I'm not a fan of social media. And let me start off by doing this because I have a feeling I'm probably going to be talking a while. And so just to make sure I set the stage right so everybody knows where I'm coming from before I even start. Daddy Ed's going to go on a little bit of a rant here.
Get your popcorn.
Instead of social media talking about 3 football games that were great quality, what were we talking about all week long on social media? An event between, I'll say, 3 people. One of them was Samson Nakua, wide receiver for Michigan Panthers. Another one was a defensive back for he was a cornerback for Michigan, Adonis Alexander. And then we had what was perceived to be a St. Louis fan, and I don't really call him a St. Louis fan. I call him a dickhead. And this is why we come out with penalties. We come out with suspensions. We have 3 people involved here. We've only heard about one of them. Where's the police report from the Metro St. Louis Police Department? They obviously know who the fan was. They've obviously talked to the fan. Where's the police report that shows what was done to this fan? Okay. And why was Adonis Alexander not suspended? Because he egged on the situation. He could have easily grabbed Nakua and said, hey, man, it's not worth it. Let's get the hell out of here. And instead, he just sat there and baited him and baited him and baited him. And Nakua doing what he did, the whole thing just reeks. It's just a bad look for the league. And I was listening to My Panther Pride earlier this week, and Lauren basically said it perfectly. And it's what I'm going to repeat what he said to everyone listening tonight. What we got to decide as fans is what kind of league we want. Do we want a professional league or do we want a beer league? If we want a beer league where we think it's funny to watch fans and players engage and get into stupid, unnecessary confrontations, then that's what we're going to always have. We're going to have a beer league. Nobody's going to take us serious. We had 3 awesome games this weekend that were completely overshadowed by 30 seconds of stupidness.
Yeah.
And what happens is we've got another St. Louis fan that had an opportunity at the time to rat this guy out, get security involved, and get them removed before it ever come to this. She makes a post on Facebook, and she says that she witnessed this guy and his significant other the whole game bad-mouthing the players. She was talking about their lack of prowess physically the whole game, and just bagging on the players. Well, where's the other fans in this section? Why is these guys not being pointed out to security and getting them the hell out of the stadium? At what point do we take enough pride? Now, there's no secret that this league is where it is today because of us, the fans, that have promoted this league, because we all know the marketing for this league is pretty much sucked from the get-go, that it's been us, the fans, that has got this league to where it is currently. So as fans, we got to start policing ourselves, man. What kind of league do you want to have? I guarantee you that this section that had the confrontation, it isn't the first time, but what I would challenge everybody to say, we've got super fans that like to travel the country and support their team, and I am 100% for it. I think it's cool. If you can get the time and you can make the drive, however, fly, I don't care. If you want to go to stadium to stadium to stadium and support your team, so be it. Go ahead. More power to you. I love it that you can do it. I wish I could, but I can't. But that's where it stops. You support your team. It's not up to you guys to police the rest of the fan bases and report to everybody on what you think the truth is about these other fan bases. I know I've hosted many of these super fans at our tailgate in St. Louis, and I've seen them go from tailgate to tailgate to tailgate to tailgate, and they get treated like pretty damn good. So their impression of our tailgating is good. We have them stay in our homes for the weekend. You name it. But somehow or another, all that is lost just because there's a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 dickhead fans in the stands that don't represent the other 30,000 that are in the stadium. I would challenge all you super fans, before you want to go around and dog everybody's fan base, about what I don't know if you guys think that your fan base is nothing but a bunch of fans sitting around sipping tea and that it's just the perfect fan base. I don't know if that's what your impression is, but I've been to San Antonio. I've been to DC. I've been to Michigan. I've been to Memphis. You get out of the experience what you put into the experience. I've sat in DC, and yes, I had a few fans that kind of shot a few comments at me, but you know what? I turned around, I engaged them, I talked football, and before the game was over, we was one big happy family. Okay? So some of you super fans, when you turn around and you address the crowd and you want to throw comments out that, evidently two can't play the game, when you want to throw out comments and then all of a sudden someone says something back and you say, well, that wasn't nice. And then for the next 3 years, you proceed to bash a fan base on one altercation or two, I don't care. 2 or 3 fans does not a fan base make. So if you guys are as big about the league as what you say you are, then let's pull the league together as fan bases and promote this league instead of trying to make certain fan bases out to be the root of all evil. I mean, so far, have I said anything that's not hitting the nail on the head?
I think you covered it, Ed.
I think the biggest problem is, and I'm just going to say it. There are certain people, certainly not all. And Brett, Mike, you can disagree or agree. There are certain fan bases, just the fan bases is what I'm talking about here. That in this case, St. Louis is the pariah. St. Louis is the easy one to get off of. You know why? Because we put 30,000 plus in the stands every week.
But you know what, Eric? That is the comment right there. That's the comment right there that gets us the most shit. Because instead of talking about the football,
right,
you've got too many people on social media that make it all about attendance.
Right, but what I'm saying is this. Because certain fan bases would love to have that. And maybe they will. Maybe they don't. But at this point in time, they don't. So when a situation like this happens, fuck, St. Louis sucks. It sucks. Sucks.
Well,
that's not the case.
Well, I'm listening to my daughter's show before we had our show. And they had a fan on that travels the country to all the games. They have a little boy that they bring. He's a little dude. We call him the little dude. They traveled to all the different fan bases. And they said they're treated great. They're St. Louis fans, but they're treated great. So why is it that there just has to completely every week, and I listen to it on other podcasts every week, they want to do nothing but pound certain fan bases and and I find it funny that some of the people that are doing the pounding are the ones that have told me when they've visited other fan bases that they were treated like crap. But suddenly when the narrative fits just right, they have a case of amnesia. And suddenly it's only one fan base that's the root of all evil. Look, Samson Nakua, the UFL had an opportunity to make an example of this guy. And was it warranted or not? I guess you can make the call. But do you want a beer league or do you want a professional league? They had the opportunity to sit Samson Nakua. They had a chance to sit Adonis Alexander, who was just as guilty as Samson was. He just didn't throw the slap. And this St. Louis fan, or I don't even call him a fan, If they come to the game and all they want to do is cause trouble, they don't belong there anyway. And if this guy's ever allowed to come in that stadium again, then St. Louis failed as well. But just a word to super fans, if you're going to travel to all these stadiums, before you make a comment on someone's fan base, if you haven't sit in every section, if you haven't sit all the way around the bowl and took in all the fans that are in someone's fan base, and you're going to label the group, the whole fan base, on what 1, 2, 3, 4 different stupid fans do, then I would just appreciate it if you'd go and root for your team and keep your mouth shut.
Right.
And with that, I'm done. You guys can take away. And one last thing, since I haven't talked long enough yet. We have another podcast in St. Louis that's putting an appeal out there on social media looking for the fan that was involved in this altercation, because they want to bring him on the show and get his point of view on what happened. Who gives a rat's ass about this guy? Why would you want to bring him on your show? Why would you want to give him 5 seconds of notoriety, exposure, anything? The guy should just be cast aside and forgotten about. That's the problem with social media. All we want is drama.
Yeah.
How about we enjoy some football? How about that?
Well, since we are on the bottom line, here's the bottom line. Fans are fans. Good, bad, or other. These are professionals on the field. I don't care whether you're in the NFL, NCAA, UFL, even in high school situations. You're going to hear things you don't like. You know what is expected of conduct. I'll give you an example. Okay? What happened on the NBA last night? The Pacers beat the Bucks out, right? What did Tyrese Halliburton's dad do?
I couldn't believe that when I saw that this morning.
Pure stupidity. How did Giannis handle it? He just sat there. Then they talked it out, and when they ended, he gave him a thumbs up, went like this, and walked away. I do not agree with fans that are dumb. They want to sit there and they jaw off the opposing players and not, whatever. Fine. That's part of it. But as a professional player, you know that it's wrong. I mean, one of the best NBA players on the planet knew he was not doing anything, even though he'd went over and knocked him out. We'd have been saying, listen, was it wrong? Yeah. Did he have it coming? Yeah. Okay. He didn't do it. So to me, because fans are fans, whatever he did, the players, I don't care where it's at, UFL, NFL, NBA, MLB, whatever it is, you have to be the bigger person. You are in the spotlight. Period. End of story. I'm not defending the fan. Not at all. If St. Louis does not ban him from future games, you're right, Ed, they have failed. But the player needs to be better. And I texted Ed, I think I texted Ed this. I said, maybe we just found out why he's not in the NFL. Maybe we did.
Well, you guys know how much I love spring football, and I really feel like the UFL has a future. They're crawling before they run, and that's the only way this thing's going to work. But I really feel like the league made a mistake on this deal. Absolutely, the fans should be banned from the arena forever, or for at least a few years until he can prove himself better, and that's for any event. But you can't lay hands on somebody like that happening. Like you said, it's such a bad look. And I read so many comments this weekend and this week, like y'all have on X and Instagram and Facebook. And I mean, I've had time to think about it, and I feel like the league would have really done better suspending Nakua for 3 games, but definitely also suspending number 19 with his BS goading, like Ed said, and then with him pointing and laughing, and after the incident happened, he was a shitty teammate by not grabbing his teammate and getting him away from the fan, and this would have never happened. But I think
players didn't understand the situation.
Yeah.
It's one thing for Nakua to not understand it, but for his teammate to say, "Dude, you got to get out of here. Come on, dude. Let's go." To sit there and egg it on, I was just like, "What is going on here? You just don't see this."
You know,
and again, we hear that the fans this interaction was going on for a while, supposedly with this idiot fan.
It was going on the whole game.
Yeah. So where was the security?
Well, but where's the other fans around there? Where's the other fans pointing this guy's out, saying, "Getting them the hell out of here"? You know, they always say, "I bought my ticket. I have a right to be here." No, you bought your ticket. You have a right to walk through those front doors. Once you walk through the front doors, it's up to you whether you stay there and see the rest of the game.
Right.
You are entitled
read the back of your ticket,
to
folks.
nothing. You are entitled to nothing. So if you want to act like a jackass, then you can act like a jackass somewhere else. But as fans, if you want a professional league, so just like we banded together on marketing, we got to band together and start getting these douchebags ousted of this stadium, because we can be the best fan base that you want to be. But as long as there's these 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 fans that all these other super fans want to go week to week to week to week to week and just continue to remind us year over year over year, continue to remind us. And I even heard the comparison today of being compared to Philadelphia.
I was just fixing to say they act like y'all were Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Kidding me? Are you friggin' kidding me? Do we need so what you're saying is that the Dome needs to put a jail in? Is that what you're saying? Is it that bad? Is it really that bad? I think about it.
They need to put a cage around all the fans in Philadelphia.
My 2 cents is on this, and I've been hearing it was happening the whole game. I don't know, and I've never been one to have, if I'm at a game, to spend the energy to heckle players versus just sitting there and watching the game.
Right.
And if you got seats behind, and I watching where, I assume this took place behind the Panthers bench. Ford Field's the same way. You can go all the way around. A lot of the fans now, when you watch Ford Field games, a lot of fans moved over to be behind the Panthers. Not many really anymore right now, from what I've seen, will go and, Ford Field's a great place. You can sit anywhere and have a good seat, but like behind the, the opposing team's bench, I don't hear too much heckling. I'm not even, I just don't get that. You're where to watch a game. We all, and as all UFL fans, we know what kind of players these are. These aren't NFL guys. These guys are trying to, better themselves and maybe hopefully get back to the NFL. And we all support them. We want them all to succeed at the highest level they can. But there's just, and hearing that happen the whole game, and the guys over, like what are we doing? Like. Come on. I'm not supporting anything of what, hitting a fan. Like, geez, you can't do that. You absolutely not can't do that. Not at all. Oh my goodness. But just like what as a, like when you go to these games as fan, like what, it's sickening that, if you ask that fan, like, or just, I'll hear some things too that just aren't necessary. Usually I'll look over to see who said that. It's some guy with a beer in their hand. It's absolutely sick. I'll sit, usually I just like to take in the game, as football fans, I'm watching football. I'm not there to try to upset or heckle or whatever the case, name call. and what Ed brought out from what he said that he heard or read what they were saying is just absolutely just awful. It's I don't know. It's sickening. I hope fans really do, like, if you see somebody that's a couple seats next to us that shouting obscenities and things like that, like, say something, just tell them, just put the beer down, or just just watch the dang game. Like,
But I would challenge the St. Louis Metro Police Department to come out with their report, because I think they can squash a lot of what's being said.
And I hope too.
Did he spit? Who knows? But the police report would be able to tell us. So let's hear it. What happened.
And then too, and this is the frustrating part too. And with, like, I really hope this does. Then this may change of how the league does its marketing thing, because I've had the privilege to, as a season ticket holder, to go to the meet and greets. We're at a DraftKings Sports and Social in Troy. I'm talking. I had pictures with Mike Nolan. I'm talking with the players. It was such a great thing. The NFL doesn't do what the UFL does as far as their fan-to-player interaction. That access you get to the staff players is just incredible. And now when you have something like this, like, what's that going to do? That might be all gone. We never know. I certainly hope not. And it just takes one bad apple to spoil a whole bunch of all goodness that the UFL has going on that makes it special versus what the NFL does. NFL, it's gates off all the time, separating the fans from the players. And then here in the UFL, it's just like you can go and have a conversation like you've known the person forever. It's incredible. So that's just, I really hope it ends.
So as Big Mike says, spitting on someone is assault, and he should have been arrested. Well, you know what? If we had the St. Louis police report findings, I would agree 100%. All I got to say is, if someone ever spit on me, there best be security there taking control of the situation, or it's going to get ugly real fast.
Right.
So with that said, we'll let Mike get off his soapbox, and we'll move on to our predictions.
Oh, we got to move on from here?
That went straight over Mike's head. He didn't even get what I was saying.
I was reading the comments. Like, what do you, what's so, like.
Okay, let's go to our, and again, just one last time. I don't want to see this guy on social media anywhere. Don't want to see his face. Don't want to know who it was.
Don't give him his
Don't
fame.
give a crap why he did it. Don't give a crap what Nakua said to him. Don't give the guy 5 seconds. He's not worth it.
No.
Okay. So we move on to week 6. It's time for our picks. So everybody that's still viewing, you want to weigh in, go ahead and weigh in. First game, week 6, is Arlington 3-2 at St. Louis. We'll see how many players are available, evidently, that shouldn't be in jail. St. Louis is favored by 3. The over-under is 42.5. Both teams are 3-2. The winner will be the 2nd seed in the XFL conference and be one of the 2 through week 6. So I'm taking St. Louis. Arlington has never beat St. Louis in St. Louis, and that dates back to 2020. So I'm taking St. Louis. What do you got, Eric?
I took Michigan last week just in hopes of propelling St. Louis to a win. But this week, I think, there were some breaks that Arlington had to have to win the last game. If those breaks don't happen this game, I'm taking St. Louis.
Michael.
Let me take so just looking at the stats here and just what I saw, just based on the passing game. Arlington had this game won against DC. Just a couple things, like the turnover was definitely a key factor in there. They were driving, they threw that interception to steal the game. Let me go Arlington this week.
Anybody need a kitten? I know someone that has 6 new ones.
Marty said asking for a friend. They're cute. They're cute now.
They're cute, yeah.
Get your ass spayed and neutered, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Brad, what are you thinking?
Man, I think it's going to be another really good game. I mean, look at Michigan and St. Louis last week, DC and Arlington, and now we've got Arlington and St. Louis. I think it's going to be real close. Fantastic. It's a must-win for Arlington. It's Arlington, but it's going to be either way. It's a coin flip to me, but I'm going with Arlington.
That is 2-2 then. That was a split right down the middle. Let's move on to the second game of the week. You got 11 o'clock Saturday morning on ABC. Memphis 1-4 is at Houston, who's 2-3. Houston is 5.5-point favorites. The over/under is 36.5. Brett, who you got in this one?
Man, I'm even though the game's in Houston, I'm walking in Memphis. Memphis, they really, and go back and watch the show from last week. I mentioned how impressive to me Memphis was, how much better they were than last season, but they wasn't getting a W. Now with Dressler win, if he has another game like that, they've got Adams, they've got Mr. Kick Six. The Panthers showed up. There you go. You're messing up my pick. All right. David Davis is back, which is a speedster, is a fantastic receiver. I don't know what teams are going to do with Davis on one side and Adams on the other side. And then they just signed Wes Hills, which was a really good running back for Michigan last year until he got hurt.
Absolutely.
Houston, been physical. I've been impressed with their effort. I know it's in Houston. But I just don't know, will they have enough offense for Memphis? And you got it. Horton's done a fantastic job with the Memphis defense. I'm going another real close game, and laugh now, but either one of these teams could end up in the playoffs. But give me Memphis by another field goal.
Michael?
Yeah. So putting a lot of thought into this one. This one really could be one of the great games of the weekend too. Must-win games for both. This is essentially a playoff game. Thinking about the coaching advantage and how these teams are playing, I think I'm giving the edge to C.J. Johnson and the Roughnecks right now because against this Memphis team, this is also a must-win for Houston. You get them at home. The crowd should be behind this team here, and I think C.J. Johnson, the way he's got the guys playing right now, quarterback doesn't look too shabby either. They're doing so. He has a good arm, good RPMs on the football. So give me Houston here. I think this is a must-win to save their season. As the interest for the Panther Nation, we are definitely behind the showboats here. But for me, watching what I'm seeing too, I think this is a very good chance for Houston to get back at 500, reset your season going into the second half. Making that playoff push, tremendous opportunity. You cannot lose this game if you're Houston. Give me the Roughnecks.
So we got Marty siding with
Memphis.
He found out that Memphis wins. It's a free kitten. So
yeah, I don't know if David Davis and Wes Hills are going to be impact players yet. Had they returned a week ago, I might change my pick. But since, they're just returning this week, I don't know how much of an impact they will coming off of, injury and being just signed, those types of things. So I'm going to roll with Houston because I think Houston's got momentum on their side. CJ's got them playing. I think I'm going to give Memphis one more week before I'm really giving them complete faith.
I think Houston's hitting their stride right now with McClendon playing good football, and their defense has always been tough. I think Houston's going to continue to roll here and get back to 500, and things could get real interesting real quick. Move on to the next one. DC 4-1, fresh off their big win at Arlington last weekend. They are traveling to Michigan. Michigan has been established as a 2.5-point favorite. The over-under is 41.5, so they're expecting some points to be scored. It's going to be a Sunday 11 a.m. game that they're moved from ESPN2 over to ESPN. I am taking Michigan to bounce back. I think that I'm one of those guys that whenever there's big games, it always seems to me like the following week that they kind of have a downer. And I think that was the case when San Antonio went into D.C. and took D.C. down right after D.C. had the big win over St. Louis. Same thing here. D.C. gets a big win over Arlington, grabs first place alone, and now they go against Michigan, who's not in the XFL conference. I could definitely see D.C. stumbling here, so I took Michigan. How about you, Eric?
Well, because Michigan has not proven to me that Michigan can beat a team with a winning record, can beat one of the solid teams in the UFL. So I am going to go with Michigan or with DC because, Jordan Ta'amu was proven that, he doesn't have to be able to complete more than 50% of his passes to have an unbelievable day. So I'm taking DC.
Michael.
This is going to be a great game. Ford Field has the perfect environment for quarterbacks to succeed in here. Bryce Perkins now, so this quarterback deal that we're hearing in Michigan, that is over. Bryce Perkins is the guy full time. Absolutely could be the MVP of the league. Michigan plays very well at home. Michigan throttled DC last year, and they have a lot of the same guys returning for this Panther team. Michigan's a good team, despite of what they say about winning record. To me, they think they look great as far as a balanced attack. Defense looks sharp too, and this is going to be a great game, folks. And DC may cover this thing. Looking at the stats, if Michigan's if Michigan's number one, DC's number two as far as statistics, and you go to other categories and they're flipped. They're like right next to each other throughout multiple statistics, team statistics on the sheet here. So I'm going to take the Panthers here. They play very well at home. Their losses, like all their losses last year, were on the road, minus the Birmingham, of course, but they'll have another chance at them. So give me the Panthers here, and they'll showcase Bryce Perkins is going to be unleashed.
Brett?
Panthers, and then once again, it's going to be we're going to have some good games again this weekend. If you're a football fan, spring football fan, UFL fan, these first three games we've covered, they're going to be really good, really, really good. All of them with playoff spots. Every one of these teams can still make the playoffs.
And it's going to be a good crowd too. It's got they're promoting it's Star Wars May the 4th. The Force will be on the side of the Panthers.
Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and all of them, huh?
Yeah,
I'm gonna take the Panthers, and once again, a field goal or less. I think it's gonna be a well of a game.
I never
give
thought
me the Panthers.
The blending of football and Star Wars. That's the perfect for me. That's gonna be a great Sunday.
Okay, that brings us to our last game of the weekend. Sunday, 3 p.m. on Fox. We got the San Antonio Brahmas at 1-4, traveling to Birmingham, who's been established at 9.5-point favorites, who's currently sitting at 3-2. Over/unders is 37.5. Brett, I'm going to give you the feature time on this matchup.
Yeah, I usually don't talk back, and again, this is a rematch of last season's championship game in St. Louis. Something just tells me that that Birmingham is going to roll over and through San Antonio. Could be wrong. You know, if Birmingham wins again by a close game and it's got a lot of viewers, I'll be happy either way. But I mean, I don't know what to think about this San Antonio team. I just can't. How do you play like they did in DC and then come back and I think Birmingham by 20. Give me the Stallions big.
Ooh, 20. It's a big number, considering your offense barely scores 20.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. It's just what the doctor ordered because this is not the San Antonio Brahmas from last season.
I guess so I'm going to go Birmingham here, but I'm not going to give you how much because I don't know what San Antonio team's going to show up. Usually when you have these games too, like Birmingham too, like, you know, we saw it with Houston, you know, it comes down to the wire. The teams that are supposed to get throttled, they seem to rise to the occasion against these teams that they're supposed to get crushed by, and it ends up being a close game. Now, I don't know who the quarterback's going to be for Birmingham. Will it be Case Cookus? You know, because from what I've seen too, if you have Case, I love Case Cookus, don't get me wrong, if you know, and it's I think, you know, if you get a couple of hits on him, you know, and I think that affects him a little bit. He still makes great throws too, but you know, just you think about last game too. They lost to Memphis. He was the starter, so you got to prove he's got to get a W for the Stallions here. But again, I don't know what what's the game plan for San Antonio? They're going to keep it close, you know, then just anything goes. It could be a turnover that decides the game. So I will pick Birmingham here. I'm confident that they'll win the game. However, I don't know what San Antonio team's going to show up. So that's going to be the key factor of how, you know, if they have a good start like they did against DC, then it's like, okay, here we go. But in the coaching matchup too, Skip's and a young coach, all his wisdom that Skip has and winning championships, that's going to be a battle in itself there. So go with the Stallions here.
Eric?
For time's sake, give me Birmingham and the points. Easy.
And for time's sake, give me Birmingham and the points. I just think you reach a point of the season where, you know, that's where, to me, incentive bonuses were an important piece of the league because you're reaching that time of the year where when teams find themselves out of it, are you going to get their best? Yes, they're trying to put film together to get back in the NFL, but as we saw last year, there was a team or two that packed it in. Yep. And it makes for football that we don't want to see. So
human nature.
Yep. So with that, that takes care of our pick.
We need to put up Brett's. Brett does such a good job of this stuff, man. We got to put it up. So there's week 6 matchup picks, and you can see how well we're doing up there.
And I would tell you that last week I went 1-3, but that was good enough to gain a game on every one of these guys
to win the week. Woof!
We had one win between all 4 of us put together. So that
1-15.
We were
Yeesh. So maybe we don't know what we're talking about. I don't know. Jeepers,
well, are these picks going to be posted for our viewers to see after the show?
Yeah, I'm gonna post them on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
Good. Like I like a good little mixture of different picks. That's always good to see too. And then
it's gonna be different. We're gonna have some interesting results after this weekend because a lot of us kind of went all over.
Well, because that's the teams have kind of dictated that.
Yeah,
Marty's picking the Arlington Renegades here. Marty's
weighing in. He's a little behind, but he didn't weigh in on the first one, so he's taking Arlington.
Stallions look to be the only 100% lockdown pick this week because they're playing the Brahmas.
After this week, that means San Antonio's going to win. We couldn't pick our nose in week 5.
Yeah,
looking at the standings here too. I mean, is this an eliminator for San Antonio here if they lose?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
San Antonio's got to win out and get some help.
If they go 1-5, 5-5 is not getting you to the playoffs in the XFL side. No way.
Yeah. 6-4 minimum, and that's with them getting some help.
Yep.
6-4 might put them in a tiebreaker.
Yep.
Scenario,
right.
but
so.
Okay, well, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We want to we encourage all of you to give us a like, give us a follow. We're closing in on 2,000. I checked today, and it's getting really close. So, if any of you like to follow us, we'd sure appreciate it.
Especially on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube.
And I will tell you, if you want football information galore and you follow us, our social media guy, who will remain nameless, will provide you with all the UFL football information throughout the week that you can possibly come across. Right, Brett?
Give us a like.
I don't know who this fella is.
Win a free cat. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
That's right. We're gonna have a kitten contest, but I'm gonna check your credentials.
Yeah.
With that said, everybody enjoy the games this weekend.
Gonna be great.
Hopefully your favorite team wins. And we will see you again next Wednesday, normal time.
Show 43.
Behave yourselves at the games.
When it comes to the UFL, you turn to none other than the bottom line. We will see you next week.
And that's the bottom